Hello, my name is Özlem Sarıoğlu, and this is The Coaching Program, sponsored by Sparkus, a coaching tech company that optimizes coaching and mentoring solutions for cultural transformation, talent, and leadership development within organizations. Welcome to the show. Hello, coaching passionates around the globe. Welcome back. You're listening to The Coaching Program, the show that brings you tips and tricks of designing and implementing successful coaching programs within your organization. I'm your host, Özlem Sarıoğlu, a professional coach and co-founder of Sparkus digital coaching platform, which scales and optimizes meaningful coaching experiences to larger audiences within organizations. This week, we are continuing our conversation with Dani Benreytan, designer and co-founder of Sparkus. Last week, we discussed on the initiation, design, and development of coaching tech projects. This week, we'll continue our discussion on how to implement and follow up. Enjoy. And let's say then we finally embarked on a journey. We designed it. We overcome the technology side of it. And how does coaching technology inform and support users throughout this process? Wouldn't they feel like, we know that in coaching, the coach handles the relationship and takes over that relationship. Now that we're keeping people on a digital platform, how does that, going on with the process, go for the users? How does that work?
It all really depends on the solutions that you use, actually.
Mm-hmm.
As I mentioned in the beginning, there are different types of coaching technologies. Mm-hmm. For tech-only solutions, most of those solutions try to stay online and keep the platform used in the process with usability rates that is somehow acceptable for the client in order to perpetuate the contract. On the other hand, again, these solutions are tech-only solutions. On the other hand, we have marketplace solutions, and their business model mostly rely on a gym membership model, where the seat is already bought for an employee. Mm. The employee goes for a coaching program. They buy the seat. They don't continue to the sessions, so the cost is lowered for that company, and the project is as profitable as can be if the sessions are not held. So that there's a gym membership like model. Like a gym membership, you just subscribe to gym. If you don't go there, the gym earns a lot more. If you go there, their profitability lowers. So what I recommend is just to check the business model, mm-hmm. understand their mentality. And there are some tools to keep the employees engaged mm-hmm. in the process. Mm-hmm. We utilize a lot of gamification methods mm-hmm. in order to keep the user, employee, engaged with the coaching platform. Mm-hmm. With reminders, okay, this is a know-how that we learned a little late in our journey. Users doesn't hate reminders. Mm-hmm. They love reminders as long as those reminders are really directed to their scenarios. So mm-hmm. if you have one-size-fits-all reminders, people get annoyed. Mm-hmm. For example, if you remind a mentee that already held 6 mentoring sessions with her mentor to have another session, she will say, okay, I already held 6 sessions that you told that I have to. Why are you keep reminding me? On the other hand, if you don't remind someone to use coaching platform after a month, they forgot about it. And when you make an inside call with them, they will tell you, why didn't you remind me? I really love the tool, but I forget about it. So you cannot remind yourself as long as those reminders are scenario-based, fit in common sense. Like you can give some examples there, I believe, but at the end of the day, most of coaches love reminders. At the same time, reminders also a design. They are a design problem that you have to solve. You have to find the right balance with them.
And when you mentioned about different memberships and different structures for programs, that made me think also like I just assumed that the HR would love to have the people continue to keep them on track, but it might not be the case from time to time. The solution might not provide that, but also the HR might just feel like, yeah, we just want them to, enjoy a gym membership from time to time. So it really depends on what the organization is really looking for. And that also brings me back to the question of that typical question of how do you measure success? When that question comes, I'm always saying like, what is success for you? But what are some tools? What are some techniques that we can use to calculate the ROI? So what do you say? Like, what are some possibilities? Because with the technology, I assume there will be a lot of data generated.
Okay, calculating ROI of any HR project is difficult, but when it comes to an HR program that inherently requires confidentiality between the coach and the coachee, calculating ROI is a real mess. At the same time, there are some opportunities with technology that you can utilize. Just before that, calculating ROI has different levels. There are some experts around this idea, but calculating an ROI after the fact, after the program, is really difficult. So what I recommend to everyone is to state your goals and spend some time on how you will calculate the ROI. What is your success criteria before launching even the pilots?
Okay, so it comes at the start, you mean?
Yeah, you have to have a clear idea about how you calculate ROI. For example, for an internal coaching project, your ROI might be the number of users utilized coaching support, might be how you calculate ROI. And for another project, ROI might be calculated by attrition rates. ROI might be calculated with numbers of trainings completed by coaches, or again, engagement levels. So when you calculate the ROI, it's not only about the utilization of the platform, but you have to have a certain tracking tools in the coaching technology to give you statistical data to run through your core ROI and understand the delta of before and after that program. A good way to do it is do an A/B test with similar groups of users. One group utilizes coaching, another group doesn't use that, and you just compare the results for those groups. I believe in order to have at least substantial ROI calculation, you need to have at least hundreds of coaches and compare it with a similar amount of users in order to have the right calculations. At the same time, it's really important to have a tool that gives you statistical data and understand your success criteria and implement necessary alterations to address that needs.
Yeah, I was also, when you were speaking, I was also thinking that in traditional coaching, what we generally have is quite linear. Like you just calculate maybe the 360s or something, like what was before, what was after. But when the technology comes into play, you have actually more than one data point to check about the process. So it is not just did this person develop or not, but it has, like you mentioned, there can be multiple success criteria, multiple definitions of success, and even sometimes the fact that the whole program was not running as we expected might tell another story if we have the enough data set. So I remember a case where people were dropping off from the coaching process when they were asked to have a conversation with their manager. And if you look at it from like, did we have enough coaching sessions? Then you can say, no, it was not that good. But if you look at it from the perspective of like, oh, so we lost some people, quite some number of people, when they were asked to have a conversation with their manager, maybe that's telling us a total different story about our engagement processes, our relationships between managers and employees. So it can be a different understanding. So I think it's also important to understand how the technology can serve us when we are designing a coaching program all over the organization. So I'm aware that, yeah, okay, go ahead.
I will just add one thing. It's a really important point. There's this fetish about data. If you only focus on some numbers and just to fulfill them, you might miss the overarching picture, the big picture.
Yeah.
It's really important to have a strategic goal. That strategic goal creates some sort of KPIs for that project. For example, the strategic goal for the project that you mentioned was onboard long-term interns into the company. And in that project, we realized most of the candidates refused to have that manager dialogue, actually refused the offer for the company.
Yeah.
And that generated another discussion, and that actually benefited the strategic goal about how we can address these issues. You have to separate the strategic goal with the KPIs, and you have to be able to redefine that KPIs with the new cohorts.
Yeah. So, I mean, now you're just tapping into what I was planning to ask as one final question. I'm aware that we are running a little bit over our time, but this is really a juicy topic, I think, for us to discuss, but also for our listeners to listen to. So I would ask, like, let's say you're a business leader who are just embarking on a digital coaching journey. You're starting a program, you're using a coaching technology in your organization. So, what are some common mistakes to avoid there? What are some core tips that you would give?
Okay. The most important one, have a clear strategic goal. Mm-hmm. The second part of that advice is have a strategic goal that you can sell to your managers, to decision makers, and understand their needs before you invest in coaching program. If you have to buy in of your decision makers, that also means you understand their needs, their goals, and you will make those goals to your coaching projects. That in turn generates a successful and sustainable business project. And on top of it, you have to check with the vendor or with the technology provider, it might be internal or external, if they get your strategic goals. And if they can have some agility around your needs. If they share your business goals, that means they're a good partner. The second big advice is always start with a pilot. When there's no light for pilots, when there's no option for pilot, create one. Because big projects fail big, and most of big projects, okay, we are living in modern times, so we are aware that sometimes some projects are too big to fail, so they survive. but they somehow become a burden rather than beneficial for the company. So it is really important to set the strategic goal, get the buy-in of the managers, and address that business need with like-minded partners and make the pilots prove your solution, at least try again and again till you prove that solution works, and then scale it.
Yeah, when you say it, it reminds me of the very recent survey, the global survey of ICF, where participants were asked what is standing on the way of building a coaching culture in the organization. And half of the participants said the difficulty of getting the buy-in of the top management. And when you describe it, like just if we know the strategic goal, if we measure around it, if we trial and fail and do it again, I think that would also pave the way to really receive that support from the top management, and then we can have more coaching culture in the organizations, I suppose. So I think that was a very brilliant tip. Thank you for that. And yeah, actually, it was a great conversation. Even though I just know you, we work together. It was also very valuable to receive your contribution, and it was inspirational for me even right now. So thank you for that. So thank you all for joining us on this episode of the coaching program. Make sure to subscribe to the show in iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you're having your podcasts. If you found this conversation helpful, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes, or you can simply tell a friend about the show who might benefit from it. Be sure to tune in for our next episode next week, and let's all create more meaningful coaching experiences for everyone. See you all.